So I want to welcome my friend Marika Malaea and Camille. Hi, you two.
Hello.
Oh,
So I'm so excited for this. This is why I'm excited for this episode. I'm excited for this episode because it gets lonely talking to your own voice and hearing your own voice about trauma. And I love it. Like I love doing the navigating episodes. I love having like an expert or a guest on. And I'm so relational and this work is so relational that it's more fun for me to like, let's just talk. Let's like be casual and professional and have fun, like learn through the art of conversation. So I'm excited just to have you two here because all three of us are at the helm of HLN. And not everyone knows that. Not everyone has really got to meet you two through that lens exactly. Like we got to know a bit about you a few episodes ago, Camille, like your life and what brought you to this work. But it's exciting like to have my team here. Like this is the team that runs HLN. So all of you who listen to the podcast, all of you that take the course, when you write emails, like it's us. So I'm just excited for them to get to feel the spirit of us together because we have a pretty good vibe. So I kind of like want to start. Well, first of all, what are you thinking? What's on your minds? Let's start there.
Hi. I guess that's what's on my mind. And I'm digging the team too. It's been really nice to be a part of the team. It's been what, like 4 months, and it's been an incredible experience. Yeah.
Marika, how long have you been with me?
the September before the pandemic, which was
gosh,
like, I don't know, 17 years ago. Yeah, it's been 2019.
Wow, it's incredible. So we've been together for almost
3 years.
3 years. Wow. So Marika, I'll tell a story about why Marika joined the team. So I was working private practice full-time, beyond full-time. It was really kind of crazy. It was like I was like 6 days a week sometimes, I think. And the days were like 10-hour days. And I was just like, I kind of decided I'm going to work these days. Anyone that can fit in these days are going to fit in. Some people won't pay any money if they can't afford it. Some people will pay the biggest fees, and people will pay sliding scale. They were just all over the place because I couldn't say no to people. And then I started getting good at saying no. And then right when I got really good at saying no, I'm like, maybe I earned the place to not pay someone to say no. So I'm like, Marika, I'm gonna start paying you to say no for me, and then like get the scheduling underway. And so you came on just for a couple hours a week just to help take my mind off of emails, because it was like 40 emails a day. That's what all I remember, right? What was it like? Can you remember?
Well, I also, we'd worked together a couple of years prior as well, because I was helping with your social media, with the music.
Yeah, my music.
An album coming out, yeah. And so I remember you called and asked, hey, you know a lot of people. Do you know anyone who could be my assistant? And I was sort of, I don't know, I had a few clients at that point. And so I was like, sure, what about me? Which I have to say, most of my really cool experiences in life have come from me going, what about me? What about me? What if you hired me? Or whatever, that type of thing. So yeah, and then after that, I remember you said it'll probably be 2 hours a week, which is when I was introduced to how you see time.
Camille's laughing. You can't see her, but she laughed right away. I have no concept of time. Marika knows this better than not as much as my wife. After my wife, you know that the most.
And also, I know if you're like, hey, I want to do this thing sometime in the next 4 months, the next day I will wake up and he will have already sent out an email and told people that he's doing. I want to do this yesterday. Is what he
So Marika's a Taurus, and part of her vibe that really helps is she moves slowly with like what would we say, like, I don't want to say pulling the trigger. It's such a term I'm trying not to use anymore.
Yeah,
it's like right. It's like right there, but it's like you when we have to like do something, you're like, I'm gonna do this slowly. And it's really worked out for me because at first it was very triggering. We talked about, I was like, now, what do you mean slowly? Let's do it now. But then I'm such a flight responder. But then I was like, this is awesome, because by the time I actually decided to not do what I told her I wanted to do, she hasn't sent the email.
Exactly. Every time.
This just happened the other day. So, you've really helped me in that way. Just like slow it down.
But I love that it sounds like I'm doing something really like conscious, but really your flight met my freeze. And no one is a match for my freeze.
Oh my God, no, it's amazing. But I need some freeze in my life. So it's been very helpful. But yeah, 2 hours a week, that's amazing.
And it ended up being, more than that, but also back then, I think you've done the course once, and I think there were 30 people in it.
19.
Oh, 19, right. And then you went up, it was like 30, 50, something like that. So
yeah.
It's been a really quick, I do sometimes wonder what it would have been like, if it would have been different, if we hadn't had so many people at home, in the last few years, sort of going through collective trauma.
No, that was the big thing, because I remember when I did that first 19-person course, I was like, it was so amazing, but I was also like really burnt out because it was just me like holding 19 people. It was only 4 weeks. It's the first course I ever taught. I did it through like the Zoom webinar, so you couldn't see individual faces, so it was just me. So I didn't know how people were feeling. It was very detached compared to, I always tell everyone from that first course, I'm sorry, you can always come back and take if any of you are listening to this who were in that first course, write to Camille or Marika. We will get you in the next one for free.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I apologize, because it's like, it is not what it has turned into like the most amazing experience. It was, they said it was great, but compared to what it's like now, it's like
I came in when there was 4 weeks, and then you pushed to 5.
Then it was 5. Yep.
And that was like maybe around 100, maybe there were closer to 100 people. And then it was like, wait, no, it needs to be 6.
It needs to be 6. Yeah. And then it went up to like 300 people. And then we were just
like, I know.
And Marika was emailing every single person out of 300 people every single week, the PDFs, audio exercises, answering all the, think about Camille, like what you see, right, on Slack. She was literally responding to every person out of 300. It was so intense. We were like so blown out at the end of that.
Yeah, and here's my opportunity to say also, sorry. Anyone I didn't get to or get back to, like, that was a very, I lived and breathed email. I still kind of do, but it's different now. So
different now. It's not as like it's time sensitive.
Yeah, I'm not doing email in my sleep anymore.
That's right. Well, that's what, that's where enter Camille, like, because I'm always talking about capacity. And it's been so interesting to look at my business, like as a nervous system, as a being in and of itself, like, what does my business need for support? And I didn't even say the word business until the last year or two, like Marika has helped me use these terms. I was just kind of like, oh, like my practice or my offering, whatever, service. But I couldn't even design a course or even write Instagram feeds because I was so overwhelmed with scheduling my giant private practice. So when the moment Marika came in and was able to just do the scheduling, I didn't have to do emails anymore. It was like all this capacity to design a better course. And then Camille took the course, and then it was so funny because, so any of you listening, so in our course, there's this circle space. At the time it was Slack. And people would write questions after, it's like Monday through Friday support. You say something like, why are we supposed to eat beans again? And there's probably like 40 of those questions, like in 1 week. And so I would be going in, I would be answering every single question. So it'd be like, I'd teach the class, I'd have my full-time private practice, and then I'd be probably 3 hours a day just answering questions. And then Camille takes the class, and I was like week 2, it was week 2 actually, because I remember it was the Karen Hurd questions. And I was like going onto Slack to answer. And every time I went to answer a question, Camille already answered the question with like footnotes.
Yeah. And I remember Luis being like, hey, this lady's on it.
So I was like, I don't know who she is. I don't know where she's from. I don't care what you did. I'm like, you are the one. Like, so we need your help. We need you. And I didn't even think to ask you. And then you wrote to us. You were like, you intuit, or no, I said to you on Slack, I was like, I need to start paying you because you're answering these questions before I can. So yeah. What went through your head at that point?
Well, Okay, so for context, super Virgo. So I come into the course like having just obsessed over the podcast, and I'm like, okay, several things that guided me to take the course. I'm like, I'm in it. This is going to be amazing. And so when I'm seeing these questions, I'm like, oh yeah, that's episode 47. Oh yeah, that's episode just the Virgo-ness coming out. And then also during this time, I'm part of the reason I wanted to take the course was I was going through the process of deciding of whether I wanted to leave corporate America. So that's also going on in my body and my nervous system. And then when I see you write, oh my goodness, I should pay you to do this. I was like, hello, universe, I'm listening.
Oh, I love that.
Love that. And then also during that cohort, that's when you and Marika announced that you would be establishing the membership. And so I'm thinking, they don't have the capacity to do all this. They need just a little bit of help. Let me reach out. Like Marika was saying, I could do it. So I reached out and said, hey, with the membership starting, do you need support on the team? I love what you're doing. I would love to help you just amplify your message.
When Marika she forwarded me the email. She's like, look at this. And I looked at the email. I was like, wait a minute. Like, this is amazing because we do need help. Like, we need to figure out how we're going to, like, Marika and I alone with our ADHD minds, like, there's no way we're going to be able to work with all that, like, input. And I don't care. It's not the Virgo thing, because I'm a Virgo too. Like, you have a very specific kind of brain that's really, like, you remember things. It's amazing. I don't remember my own podcast. Like, when someone says, like, why beans? I'm like, why beans? I have to like go on and find it. So, when I saw you doing that, and then like I got a sense of your energy in the course. And then it was that one session, because Marika and I talked about it afterwards, where we were talking about attunement and we were talking about triggers, and we were someone had asked the question about racial violence and about racial triggers and about racialized trauma. And I was doing my best to answer those questions, that it can be difficult when you're in front of a bunch of people and you appear a certain way. It's like, you don't know how you're going to say this, how you're going to come off. So I was just doing it from the heart. And then you gave an example of something really radical. And essentially what you were saying was like, you've come to terms with the reality, but you don't internalize the reality. And there was this state of like, well, she's not giving up. She's not denying it, but she's totally attuning to her own safety inside. And I was like, that's the work that I like live and breathe and teach. So when you said that, and then we got the email, I was like, I think Camille needs to be on this team. Like, there's something very special there. So it was, and then you joined, and then it's been like, Marika and I both had this like,
okay, well, like, first he said, yeah, what if you just work for like 3 hours a week? And I was saying to Camille, so it's probably going to be
you more translated? Did you translate for me? Okay. You're my translator.
I did.
Anything he says, multiply it by 3 to 4, and then we get closer. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. So I guess what I'm curious about is, what has it, well, I would just want to say, you're all going to be hearing a lot more from us 3 together, moving forward, like certain kind of like events and trauma topics and things that we talk about when we're hanging out, when we're having meetings anyway. And it's a fun way to learn instead of just hearing the facts and just hearing the healing. It's kind of fun to hear it through conversation. So you're going to hear more from us. But I'm just curious, like, as individuals right now, start with Marika, like what has it been like to facilitate these workshops with me, to do the webinars, to answer all the emails? Like, you get some really tender emails. Like, how has it been for you to be part of this work?
Well, I mean, it's been really life-changing, I think. I mean, maybe not, well, I mean, I think my internal life, right? And I just remember doing the course the first time when you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. Do you want to assist? And I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't know how to use Zoom. and just very mind blowing, just seeing myself in so many of the examples and seeing like, oh, that was a trauma response. And I just thought that I was terrible at that, or, that type of stuff. So for me, it's been life-changing in just how I have a relationship with myself, because there's a lot less judgment, blame, shame, like all the fun stuff. Mostly because I have more tools, and it's really changing for me as well to watch other people change. Like maybe not change, but it's just so it really lifts me up. I'm not on camera doing that type of stuff like the two of you are, which I think is really amazing. But it's so cool to get emails from people about how their life has been changed and know that I got to be a part of it. Like it's really cool. And seeing it sort of my outer life, kind of the ripples. My mom just took the course and went through the ongoing circle, which was cool. And my husband at some point will go through it.
What did you tell me that he said the other day?
It was like he thinks he's already taken it through osmosis.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's true because he's my sounding board. But I think it's worked really well for us as well because I'm always the very sort of loud, chaotic energy in our relationship, and it's just been so calm. I think it probably even sort of knocked him off balance because he's the calming one, and now he just gets to be.
Oh wow, it's gorgeous.
It's nice. Yeah, I mean, I've just noticed how we've changed in that way where it's not like the highs, lows.
Yeah.
We've always been a really good team, but I think it's because we were good at managing me. And now it's like, oh, we don't have to do that anymore. We get to just be like a team,
I love, it's so beautiful to know that. And it's like, I love what you said about like watching the other people transform and shift. Because whenever someone comes on screen, they have like that epiphany. Like I won't say what it was. We all know what happened on Monday. And it was like, and I always, what I always do is I go through the Zoom, the little blocks, and I always look for Marika. And when her screen's off, I know she's crying. It's because when I feel myself about to cry, I'm like, okay, I know Marika's already there. And when I see the screen off, and it always moves me just to know how like emotionally connected you are to their experiences. It's so beautiful.
Well, and also I think it's just so great that they can model. Like they're modeling for us as well, just as
absolutely
as much as you are for them. And like it's inspiring because it's not like I take on this I take on this work, I remember, and then I forget. So it's so nice to continually get these reminders from people who are really who really want to live in a way that I want to live, free and feeling good and enjoying actually life rather than being in fear of it all the time or just in reflexive mode, which I tend to be really good at.
No, I totally agree. I love that. I'm curious for you, Camille, like what's it been like for you? Because you were doing work. I don't think it was trauma informed. I think like you've always intuitively understood trauma. That's why you got this work so quick. But it was different, right? But like, I'm curious how it's impacted your work, your life. Like, what's it like for you to go through these courses and be a facilitator of trauma healing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to starting this work, I still am a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner. And what I have really found, and what I started to find as I did that work more and more, is that it was rooted in trauma. It was rooted in not just individual trauma, but generational trauma, community trauma. And what I have found in being able to support this work on a daily basis, that this is really the underpinning, in my opinion, of real diversity, equity, and inclusion work. You really can't get to some of the other stuff where a lot of individuals and companies want to automatically go, like the bias training, the microaggression training, if you haven't started with first understanding what trauma is and what it means to have a traumatized system, what it means to be have a traumatizing collective experience. So it's been really good for me to have the opportunity to be in space with people to do that work, and then to also have the opportunity, frankly, when I'm allowed, to also carry that over into my diversity, equity, and inclusion work, because I think it's incredibly, incredibly interconnected.
I love that. And what's it like for you as like a human, or as a mother, or like just in your nervous system, to actually facilitate the trauma healing, like to be in the groups, like to do the Q&As, to hear people express like I'm just curious how it affects you or how you feel about it.
The way I can best describe it, it makes me, as cliche as it gives me the warm and tinglies. Like I really love holding space for people, even when I do diversity, equity, and inclusion work, or even when I'm doing work for holistic life navigation. I will get the feedback from participants like, thank you so much. This must be so hard for you. You must be exhausted. I'm thinking like, actually, no, I feel really good. It's like that other crap I have to do that I would love getting taken. But holding space, yes, I could do that all day long. Talking about trauma or talking about systemic oppression, I could do that all day. Sign me up. I actually really, really enjoy it. And what was been really interesting about this experience and what I've really appreciated is, like I shared before, I was on a journey trying to decide if I want to leave corporate America. And leading up to that, I kept getting the advice like, oh, you need to find a mentor in the corporate space. You need to find somebody that, you can mentor and they can coach you. And I was in this place where I'm looking around and there's nobody here that, in my opinion, is happy. There's nobody here that I actually want to aspire to be like. And then I happened to be attending a festival where you were presenting, Luis, and you shared a lot of great information. I was really engaged with you. And then you did this one little thing. This little bug crawled up on your hand and you looked at your hand. He's like, oh, there's a little bug on my hand, everyone. Look at that bug. And I was like, that, I want to learn that. How do I get to a place where that is my mentor, that is my teacher, whatever you have gone through, learned, I want to learn that. And it's funny because when you said, Marika's helping you get comfortable with calling your practice a business, that is what I wanted to learn from you. Having the chance just to be in space where, yep, we are able to bring in money, but in a aligned way, in an equitable way, in a way where we're not pushing ourselves past our capacity. Like it's not either or, which I felt for a long time. That's the dynamic people set up. Either, you're making money, you're supporting yourself, you have a stable income, or you have stable finances, or, you're comfortable, you're happy, you have freedom in your life, and they can coexist. And so just even having the opportunity to be on your team, just watching you do what you do, how you navigate space, and seeing that, yep, the two can coexist has been really nourishing for me.
Oh, my heart is so open. I love hearing that. It's like so touching to the bug moment, because like anyone that watches that was Tending the Roots, right?
Yep.
Anyone that watched that whole thing and that was the moment that lit them up, like that's a friend of mine. It's like there's no question. It's just so beautiful to hear that. And I was thinking like how what Marika said at the end when she was talking about how this every time you take the course you get to be reminded, because like you forget or you can't hold it. I feel the same way. I feel like every time this course sells out and we have all these people come in, I'm always like shocked. I really never expect it to happen. I'm not in that place where I'm like, okay, I made it. I don't believe in making it. It's just kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen next. But every time people come, I just realize, oh, okay, they're showing me that I have to keep practicing. Like until I have to stop practicing this, I'm going to have to keep teaching this course, because every time I learn it differently through everyone's experiences and their shares. And even what you said, Camille, like learning how to, for me to build the capacity to receive money was the hardest thing in my entire adult life. Like so difficult that at one point I was making almost no money because I wouldn't charge anybody. I couldn't. And then I burn out. And so I was noticing this interesting kind of like awareness of money as a being, and like how, I think of like James Olivia when they came into our membership, and they were talking about that specific thing of value and how we're born into a culture that has a collective value that we don't identify with, yet it affects us. That way of seeing it really brought peace to me with money. Because if everyone said tomorrow, like, let's drop it, I'd be like, fine, I have no connection to it. But with the actual like reality of what I need in life, and then money gets me there, I'm like, okay, I'll play the money game without identifying with it, and it feels clean because it's a game that I'm playing. I'm just curious where you two go with that. Like, what's your experiences around that?
Oh Oh yeah, and again, I see everything as interconnected. So for me, that's just another construct. I don't see money as any different than time or race or sexual orientation or gender.
Yes.
These are constructs that we've created that aren't really real. Yet the reality is they have a real impact on us. So would I like, is time a construct? Absolutely. But we also needed to say, okay, we're going to start recording our podcast at 2:30. So we had to leverage it. So that's how it settles in my body.
Yeah. What about you, Marika?
I'm the same as you. I have a giant hole in my pocket anytime I have money, you know. That's been me since I was little, you know what I mean?
Me
But
too.
I also felt like that's something that changed for me working together, because I finally, I think I felt like it was overcoupled with I don't have a future.
Mm.
And like that's not true for me anymore. So it's interesting to like watch myself like get money. What do I do with it? Am I saving it now? Like, you know, things I didn't usually do before, because it was like, well, we're living in every moment because who knows what. But there is a way to live in the moment and also prepare for the future, I think. You know, not, it doesn't have to be the far off future, but like just, you know, it's been an interesting lens to look at like how I am with other things, you know, as well. Because yeah, money's like it's a very emotional and uncomfortable for a lot of people, but they don't know that. You know, and so, and I didn't know that for a long time, but I just knew I didn't want it. I needed it, but I didn't want it. You know, does that make sense?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think we're really like, what recently landed in me, I would say 2 years ago, was the word privilege. Not the way we're thinking of it like politically. It could be there too. But I was thinking of like, I was like, okay, if I made skateboards, right? I wouldn't mind charging people for a skateboard, like, because it's like a privilege. You don't need it. It's a privilege. And that was so hard for me about being a therapist and a trauma therapist. Like, how do I say no to knowing I can help this person like with their diabetes? Like, how do I say no to that? Like, as a nutritionist as well, it was so difficult. But then what really shifted for me, I was like, but them being with me for an hour is a privilege. You know, it's like, just because I exist and I have this knowledge doesn't mean that everyone deserves to have it every second. It's still my body that has to go through giving that knowledge and like sitting with the person. And that really, with the decolonial work I've been doing, that's what really became clear, because I was thinking of more collective cultures. We're thinking of like tribal cultures. It's not an individual based system. It's like you process with the community. You know, maybe the shaman takes you for a couple minutes, maybe for a weekend, but it's not like every Friday at 1 you have an hour with the shaman no matter what. Like, that's a privileged, like, Western modern concept.
Right.
And that really like blew my mind when I fell into that, how new that was. I was like, oh, it is a privilege to sit with someone every week and just say whatever you want to them, and they keep your secrets and they help you and they don't judge you. Like, that's a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
So that really helped me be like, let's do these courses and podcasts and make that really accessible, like collective healing. And the individual work is going to be a privilege. I'll charge more for it. I'll do it less. Like, that felt really settled. I'm curious, like, I see you, Camille, like, like, where does that go for you?
So many things. So for me, when it comes to money and charging, it is about, again, capacity. In order for me to be able to hold space for people, I'm going to have capacity in other parts of my life in order to recharge or have resourcing. And money allows me to have that space. And so, to your point, there are going to be sliding scales. So when I'm working in the corporate space, I do charge a very different amount than if I'm working with a nonprofit or a charity. But the amount that I charge a corporate organization allows me to be able to also have space to work with a nonprofit or a charity. So I do think it's that sort of that balance and that sort of that back and forth. It doesn't have to be this one flat thing, but recognizing that in order for me to do this work that I really enjoy doing, I also have to have space for me to recover, to have resourcing. I also really appreciate it with what both you and Marika were sharing around your experiences and journey with money, because through the course, I came to realize that I had a different experience with money. For me, I was very much overcoupled it with security and stability. And one of the most profound things I learned in the course, week one, and I thought week one, okay, this is stuff I already know. I've listened to the podcast, nothing new is going to come out of this. But week one, it became so very clear to me that I had never found safety in myself, in my body. It was always this outside source, predominantly money. And over the past couple of months, to transition from a place of realizing that I have safety, even in the absence of money, has been really interesting, where I'm not reliant or dependent on money for my safety, but it allows me to do things. But to know that even in the absence of money, I'll still be okay, has just been really refreshing, I think.
I love that.
Well, I love also having a different, like, I think it would be very different if I was 25 or 35. You know what I mean? Like how I would look at money, how I would spend it.
I thought you were
Now
35. Thought you were 35.
Sure. I'm 46. So give or take 11 years. But yes, my whole, I just feel like it's nice to know myself better now, and also to have like the tools and the things that I learned from the course and be getting money, because I think it would just still be this loop of having the hole in my pocket, you know, because now it's kind of fun being an embodied Taurus, a little bit of money. Because like I still need my good skincare products, okay?
Yeah.
Like right. I need my right, and I also love that, you know, now I have money that now I can spend money on things like rest. You know, nice. Just like getting for us, it's, you know, finding an Airbnb somewhere on the water, you know, for a week, or which, you know, one, I couldn't super afford before, and then two, it just wasn't. That's not what I spent money on. I spent it on, you know, I love stuff and things, but but now I want experiences, and now I want like a feeling, you know, and it's nice that I can get done.
That piece is really beautiful, like spending money on an experience instead of like a product. Because like when Camille was talking about like outside of herself, the safety, like if you're spending money on like, I don't know, a beautiful chair, who knows, that's lovely. Like that can create an experience too. And I love this idea of like, how can the money create more capacity in my body? You know, not just something to orient to, but like something that actually shifts something in me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And rest always does that for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like all of my 20s, I don't know how I did it, but I lived off of like $10,000 a year. And I was like, how did I do that?
Didn't you eat just like half a cup of beans a day?
Well, that's part of how I did it. That's part
coffee and cigarettes. That's how you did it. You resourced yourself.
That was my early 20s. That was my early 20s. No, it was like, what I always think is a lot of people will say to me, like, Luis, you can't talk about nutrition. Like, it's not fair. Not everyone can afford it. And I was like, I lived off of $10,000 a year, and I always ate organic because that's all I spent my money on. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have cable TV. I didn't have air conditioning. Like I didn't have a car. Like I didn't have anything else, because what mattered the most to me was my body. So I was like, I want to feel really good. And if I'm at a certain like income level and I have to choose between like an iPhone plan, $120 a month, or put $120 a month to like the co-op, I'm like, I'm gonna do the co-op. And it was so amazing. And I've always felt alive, and I've always felt rich. Like I've always felt wealthy. I've never felt like I was in a poverty level. But I'm saying that because like what you said about spending the money on something to give you an experience, it really reminded me of that. And to this day, I really get off on like the money I make, like spending it in really cool places. Like, you know, donating to indigenous funds that I really believe in, and helping people with their land. And like some wonderful person in town I love, whose like car kept breaking down, I like anonymously gave them money. I gave someone money to give to them and said like, and hopefully no one's listening. I don't realize this is public. Maybe if you know, if you know who I'm talking
Will,
about.
you could edit that out.
Yeah. Will, edit that part out, please. But it's like I have so much fun like creating capacity, for everyone and myself with money, instead of it being this thing that I either hoard or feel really guilty about and throw off.
That's something that I did when I started making more money, was I over so I was just giving it all away,
Me too.
and it was because and even though it was excuse me, even though it was like for a good cause, and it was for, it was completely reflexive, because it was in response to all the years I couldn't give, and feeling like I had to catch up. I had to like give all the stuff that I didn't give, which, and then I didn't have anything.
Yeah.
So it was finding that balance, between, I mean, like in the Vipassana, they were talking about dana, giving dana, like, or where it's like not too much and not too little, giving the act of generosity being something that's really, intentional. And so because of that, and I talked with my husband, who was like, why are you giving all the money away? And it was like, oh, I can just set up things every month, for organizations that I like. And it doesn't have to be this like throwing it all in 1 month, or, taking care of myself as well.
It's so fun. It's funny because I never talk about money. Like I talked about it when Bridget was on, because like that's her work. But like it's so funny that this topic, like we went to money, which I'm feeling is like the capacity piece is why we're there. It's like it took us that way, because it's just another form of capacity and learning how to be with your capacity. But I'm just thinking it's funny, I never talk about this, so it's interesting to talk about it like this. And I mean, I'm kind of wondering, because we only have a little bit of time, I'm kind of wondering, like, is there anything, at one point Camille had a list of topics that we kept saying, let's talk about this next time we talk. And so I'm wondering, like, is there anything on that list we want to start like chipping away at, or anything y'all want to bring up that's like kind of in your minds currently around somatics or trauma, or even like a topic coming up through the collective that we're seeing with the course and such? I'm just curious.
So this was on the list, and it's kind of related to money. For those of you who don't know, Louise was a real estate agent at some point. What?
Not your average real estate agent. I forgot that was on your list.
It was.
I thought you were going to say you forgot you were a real estate agent.
I have forgotten.
Like, it was that long ago.
I was that dissociated. I forgot. That was quite a year. So from the age of 17 to the age of 27, so for 10 years, my focus was like, how can I work the least amount of time and pay my bills so I can just make art? Like, that's all I cared about. Like, I wanted to hang out with people, make art. And so, like, hello, real estate. Isn't that the most obvious? Isn't that where you two would go?
No, I probably would just be like a Colombian drug lord.
Well, that would have been much more profitable.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go into real estate. And Eamon, who thinks like I think, we're like thought twins. She's like, oh, I'll do that with you. So we both quit our jobs, went to real estate.
Eamon was a real estate agent too.
Both
were? Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot process. Mind blown.
Well, the best thing is we did not compromise ourselves at all. So like, we were in this real estate. So we finally graduate. I will be totally honest here. I graduated because I cheated. I could not pass the real estate exam to save my life, because I was so bored and dissociated in class, because I did not care. I just wanted to sell a house and make money. So I was like, I'm not going to learn about the laws. I'm not going to learn about I can't comprehend that. And so someone in the class sent out a group text or a group email with like, there's 3 different tests everyone gets that they're random. It's like an A, B, and C. So you never know which one you're going to get. So you have to read the whole book so you pass it. They sent out A, B, C, all the answers. Somehow this person got this like cheat sheet. And so I like took a deep breath. I picked B. I memorized it, and B was the one I got. And I was like, oh my goddess. And I quickly A, B, D, C. It was one of the, what were those called? The Scantrons?
Yeah, the Scantron, abracadabra, abracadabra.
So I was like, I remembered like, you know, the form and like which one was A. I just went through it quick and I passed. I was like, I cannot believe I just passed from, I never cheated on anything in my life. And I'm like, here we go. And so I passed, Eamon passed because she read the book and she has a photographic memory. She was good. And so I passed, I passed after 3 tries. She passed after 1. And then we're like, oh, we're real estate agents now. So imagine me, dreadlocks, sandals, linen baggy pants, you know, like little vests, sitting in a real estate agent, listing, you know, these like apartments all over Brooklyn and Manhattan. And I had this huge 1980s Aerostar van. It's like these really long vans that seat 16 people or so. And I just drove around the city with all these people in my van, showing them like house after house after house. And it was so interesting because I really learned the post-colonial culture through that. I learned the culture of domination, of competition, of lying, of desperation to make money. Like I remember going into a place that there was a hole in the wall, there were heroin needles in the refrigerator, and I was just supposed to smile and like sell it. And I couldn't, but it was like that was part of the energy, right? And I'm not saying all of you listening who are real estate agents, you go through this, but in the city at that time, that's what it was like. But I got so burnt out from that. I remember I was sitting at my kitchen table and I had a laptop, I had my iPad, and I had my iPhone. They were all open. They were all on different screens and different emails of people. And I was like, whoa, I gotta stop. So I gave my iPad away, I sold it on Craigslist. I gave my iPhone away, sold it on Craigslist, got rid of my internet, and I got really simple. I got a job at a macaroni and cheese shop. And I just Marika's like dream job.
Why did you ever leave?
And she's wearing a hat that says lasagna right now, just for those of you that can't see. But it was this amazing moment of learning capacity, and that my joy came from my capacity, not through domination. So if I had so much, I mean, I made no money on real estate. I was a horrible real estate agent, but like, you know, the promise of money is what got me in there. If you can imagine, I was really bad. So I couldn't do it. So I got this job. I think it was $9 an hour under the table, selling macaroni and cheese to people. Free mac and cheese all day. There's 1 block from my apartment, and they had vegan gluten-free mac and cheese. So I was like, okay, all my values align here. I'm just or the whole kitchen was Latino, so I felt very at home. And it was just this settling of like, oh, I don't have to sell anything. People want mac and cheese. They're coming in for them, right? And that feeling was so like, I'm never going to do anything out of my alignment ever again.
Mm-hmm.
That, love that.
Yes.
All of that.
Period. Well, we were talking about that the other day about job, like capacity with jobs. Like you and I.
Oh yeah.
Luis and I were, and I was saying like, yeah, I think it surprised, you know, my parents and probably other adults. You know, I could just leave jobs so easily if it was just, and it was not ever like a 2-week notice, like.
Oh yeah.
You know, it was just like, oh, I'm done. You know, and I'd just be like, okay, bye. You know, like it wasn't because I couldn't handle whatever was going on, you know.
I think that's
you know, flight response. But
no, I'm with you. I never gave you 2 weeks notice. I'd be like, sorry, I have to go. And I always make up some like amazing reason.
I'll be taking this mac and cheese with me, but I have to leave.
After I get this mac and cheese, I'm out. But it was like, hold on, I just left my mind. The capacity piece, like what I hear the most in the course and in the membership and like private clients is like, how do you honor your capacity in a world like in a country like ours in America? It's so capitalistic, where you have to work so hard. There isn't a lot of surplus. We don't have money coming in anywhere. We don't have any assistance. So it's kind of like, I mean, that's why I was at quote poverty level for so many years. I made that personal decision that I okay with that because I couldn't go beyond my capacity. No one should make that decision. It's up to them. Like, I'm not saying that's the way, but like that's what was good in me. I just couldn't push. And knowing you, Camille, like how did you get yourself in corporate for so long? Like
Yeah.
You're so not corporate. Like,
that is such the question of it's funny now, I will meet people and I'm like, oh yeah, I used to be in corporate America. They're like, what? And I mean, I'm only like 6 months removed.
That's right,
but they're like,
right.
what? I just can't picture this, which is probably telling. But I mean, you know, I just grew up talking about generational wisdom and generational trauma. I come from a lineage of Black people who lived through the Depression. So this idea of, well, if you can make it, if you can get a job with rich white people, you'll be happy. So that was the mindset I had my entire life. If I can get a job like rich white people, I'll be happy. Because my grandparents, they had to work all the time. They had to struggle because they were doing these menial jobs. But you'll be happy if you can have one of those pretty successful corporate executive jobs. So I went that path and I did it. And there were parts of it I liked. But I increasingly realized there were things I just didn't have the capacity for. It got to the point where I was getting feedback in my annual reviews. You can't see, I rolled my eyes, but one, I didn't have capacity for annual reviews, but the feedback I would get is, you know, you do such really good, you do really good work. You're really good at XYZ. But you really got to know how to play the game more. You got to learn how to read between the lines. And I have no capacity for that. For context, I think it's just me personally, but I'm also autistic. I think that's a part of it. And for any of you out there who watch Game of Thrones, like real talk, I'm Ned Stark, dead first season. Like I don't play the game. I'm either going to tell somebody the truth or I'm going to believe someone. And but you said that's what you said. Why is that not the truth? Yes. So the reality is, to be successful in corporate America, you have to play the game. It is that Game of Thrones. You have to read between, it is the politicking, the bureaucracy. And I have no capacity for that. I think there are lots of people who do. And like you were saying, this is an individual choice. And we'll get that question in the membership. So am I supposed to leave my job? That's a question only you can answer. And I had to come to the realization, like, I don't have the capacity for the bureaucracy, for the politicking, for the reading between the lines. I need to be in a role, in a team where direct communication is present. And so that's what helped me make that choice to leave. But I do think I stayed in that situation so long because of that generational wisdom and trauma, that belief, well, I should be happy because I have a fancy job and I'm making consistent good money. And for a long time, I felt really guilty because I wasn't happy and I should have been happy.
I so connect that, you know, because my Puerto Rican side of the family, same mentality. It was like, get a job where you work really well, where people pay you really well, work really hard. That's all that matters in this lifetime, is that you secure yourself with money. That's all that matters, nothing else. And the idea of happiness wasn't even a discussion. It was almost like laughed at, like, oh, that's for someone else. Like, we have to work. And I never aligned with that. So I felt so guilty every time. I dropped out of college twice. You know, I felt so guilty every time I was like, I don't have capacity for this game. Like, this competitive thing isn't in me. I couldn't pretend that it made me happy either. I think that's like I think it's so beautiful when you have the capacity to walk away. You know, because sometimes you don't. Like, sometimes your livelihood, like, you literally can't survive without your corporate job. And if that's the case, like, I feel for you. But when you have the capacity and you can walk away, or you have the ego flexibility to say, well, I'm not going to be able to live the way I was living, and I'm actually okay with that because I prefer more peace. I just love that as an option.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely. And I got to that place too, where I was willing to make that trade-off, where like, okay, worst comes to worst, because it helps me to imagine the worst case situation. And for me, the worst case is, what if I can't pay my mortgage? Okay, so maybe we have to downsize. I'm willing to do that if I have more time, because I felt like that was what I was losing. I was losing time as well. Like, I was working 60 hours, 70 hours a week, and it just wasn't sustainable for myself, for who I wanted to be as a mother, as a wife. And so if I was to downsize, okay, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make, to have that space, to have that time back.
Well, I also feel this kind of like sense of pride mixed with excitement, because like HLN, I think you two have to be honest here. I feel like we're insanely direct with communication. Like, but tell me, like, what's your experience? I'm always like, did anything come up for you today? Like, if you're upset with me, talk to me. There's something with money. Tell me, like, what's that like for you? I'm like over communicated.
One of the most refreshing things, I mean, just so many refreshing things being here at HLN, but one of the things that stood out to me, like when we first started working together, we'd already had a couple of conversations. Maybe it was our first time or fourth or fifth time connecting, but we just got on the Zoom and you said, "Hey, how are you doing, Camille?" And I said, "Fine." And you said, "Really?" I said, "Well, actually, let me think about that." And it was just nice, like to have it. Oh, you're genuinely asking me like how I am. And like, I have the space to actually think about, let's see. Like that's what I like. That's what I appreciate. Or like you said, we have really frank conversations. Like we can ask each other questions, or we can say, actually, that doesn't really sit well in my body, or I have some hesitancy here. And I don't have to worry about playing the game. I don't have to worry about, well, if I tell Luis, I don't really like that, how is he going to internalize that? And is that going to impact my ability to be successful? No, it's just, nope, I'm not really feeling that. Let me know what your thoughts are. That's what I really appreciate being in this space with both of you.
Yeah, same. I think it was really helpful because I do a lot of fawning because I was in customer service forever. And so the customer is always right. Now, I'm not saying that customers aren't right, but it was like you override so much of how you're feeling. And so, yes, now it's interesting. Same thing with me, Camille. Now, when people ask me how I am, I pause because of Luis, because it would be like, oh, how am I feeling? Like, rather than just be like, yeah, good. Usually people go, well, I'm good, but the world, which I totally get, but
it's so reflexive. It's not like an internal.
Right, exactly. It's like, well, I'm doing okay, but I have to make sure that I know that everything else in the world is not okay.
Yes.
Like, no,
isn't that interesting? That needs to be a topic for next time, because I think that's Eamon,
that's one that comes up a lot.
That comes up a lot. One of my favorite things about being with Eamon and just knowing her as a person is she has these incredible ways of like breaking the matrix. And one of my favorite of hers is she'll go, let's say she's going to the grocery store, a corner store when we lived in the city, like wherever it is, and she's buying like pads because it's moon time. And she goes up to the counter, she buys the pads, they go, "Would you like a bag for this?" She goes, "No, I'm going to eat it in the car." And I'm telling you, out of the hundreds of times I have watched her say this, maybe one person laughed. Everyone else is like, "Okay, here you go." Like, they're not even, it's like one of my favorite social experiments of hers.
Oh my God. If I was that checker, I would be like, "Here's my number. We're going to be friends."
That's why we love you. That's why you're in our life.
That's the bug. That's Eamon's bug.
That's the bug.
Yes.
That was the bug.
That's Eamon's bug. Oh, I love it. It's true, because when I saw that, I'm like, oh, someone that witnesses this like fun, weird reality we call society and like the human experience. She's like trying to like play and like bring people out of that like automatic reflexive even fawning strategy. And so many people, they're not seeing it. And like, I feel for them, obviously. Like, I know what it's like to be exhausted by the 400th person to come through my register, and it's hysterical at the same time. There's something so funny about us when we're that reflexive that we don't even hear that woman just said she's going to eat her pads on the way home. Like, that's like, that's like a whole other level. So anyone listening who wants to try that, like, tell us what happens.
Let us know how it goes. Yeah.
Please report back to us.
The somatic engaging.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, I mean, this was really fun and sweet. I'm so glad we got to introduce people to like this background, of what they know so far. That's exciting for me. And yeah, we have a list. Camille has a list. I'm sure Marika has a list. I'm gonna start making a list. Yeah. You don't have a look. Marika doesn't have a list
of pastas I'm gonna eat before we do these podcasts.
Marika's list of pastas. Well, you can bring one of those each time. You can tell us what pasta you ate.
I'll just keep buying hats.
That's yeah. Marika has a hat that just says coffee on it, and every week 2, that's the hat, because week 2 is where we talk about eliminating caffeine in the course. So Marika will put on her hat, and I'll tell everyone to orient to Marika's screen, and everyone has a good laugh. And the people that like are not letting go of coffee, they're like, "I see you, Marika. Thank you for seeing me."
I'm like, this is in support of you and also in protest of
Luis and this whole thing, which I love. I think it's great they have someone to attune to that's like, fuck this.
Fuck Kale.
Yeah, exactly. Fuck Kale and fuck comment. Yeah, exactly. I love
my God. Okay, yeah, we're gonna do more of these. So you'll hear from all of us soon. Camille, Marika, anything you want to leave us with? Questions or insights or goodbye or anything?
I survived.
She did.
You survived. Do you want to tell people what you survived?
This podcast. No, I'm working on it. This is practice.
This is good for you. Marika has a little bit of stage anxiety, right?
No. Yes.
Okay. Wait. No. What was that?
It's more like I was always like the person who wants attention, but then when you give it to me, I'm like, how dare you? So I'm working on
capacity versus desire. Right
capacity versus desire.
That's right.
It all comes back.
It all
comes back.
Well, you did survive. We're gonna do many more, so you'll survive those too. How about you, Camille? What do you want to leave us with?
Just want to say thank you, and I can't wait to continue to have more conversations, and I anticipate some of them will get a little controversial, and I look forward to it.
I hope so. That's what I'm waiting for.
I'm into that.
Oh yeah.
This is a safe space for controversy. That's what we need more of those. Thank you both. I mean, you two, I just have to say on the record so everyone's hearing it, you two have completely changed my life. Like, not just on the business side, like the capacity, that's great. You helped me run it smoothly. Like I could not do it without either of you. That's totally true. Yet as friends, like I think because you wanted to work with me because of the kind of work I do, it meant there was this really deep common bond. And so it's like I feel like, oh, great. friends of my culture. Like it feels so good. So I keep telling Marika, I think I told you, Camille, I'm like, okay, if people keep signing up for this course once a year, we're gonna have an HLN destination vacation weekend where we go somewhere for a week and we luxuriate and we have like one meeting just to justify it. And then we just like, because we didn't say this part, we're all in different parts of the country. Marika's in wait, you're not in Seattle, you're in Washington.
Yeah, I'm right outside of Seattle.
Right outside of Seattle. Camille, where are you again?
Richmond, Virginia, right. And I'm in upstate New York. So we're all over the place. I mean, we talk all the time and we work every week together. So I feel like we're neighbors. But it'll be fun to actually be in space together at some point.
And I'm fine with doing any podcasts from a vacation oriented so that'll help me build capacity.
Okay. Well, there we go. Another good reason to plan that, right? Okay, my loves. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye.
Bye-bye.